The vibrant LGBTQ plus community in San Antonio is another facet to our unique culture. This Pride Month, I sit down and talk with some leaders and influencers in our city who are staying true to themselves and living authentic lives. In this interview, I talk with Michael Quintanilla about his start as a journalist to becoming one of San Antonio's most recognized personalities, the struggles he overcame, and his advice to those who are trying to find their way. Michael, thank you for joining us. I'm so glad you're here. Now, I'm going to go through, this is quite a list of accomplishments.
Oh,
okay.
no.
I know you're very modest about this,
Please
but
don't.
no, I'm going to go through it real quick. Quickly as possible. Your stories have appeared in the LA Times, Dallas Morning News, Dallas Times Herald, El Paso Herald, and of course the San Antonio Express News. You are a feature writer of both the Los Angeles Times, the California Newspaper Association, Publishers Association, Lifetime Achievement Award by the San Antonio Association of Hispanic Journalists. You've got an award there. You're advisor for the nonprofit Press Forward organization. You're Hasbro's Mr. Monopoly.
Yeah, that's what? Are you what?
Ambassador for Visit San Antonio. First San Antonio Fashion Week Icon Award of Excellent recipient. 2024 Pride Center's Media Icon Award winner. Wow. Trinity University's 2024 Tower Award recipient. The Mayor Ron Nirenberg had called you the face of Fiesta, Mr. Fiesta. 2024 Fiesta Flambeau Grand Marshal. Wait, people, I'm not done yet. Honored by the Spurs organization with Leaders and Legacies Award. So member of the newly formed LGBTQ plus impact group for the San Antonio Spurs. Member of the city's LGBTQ plus advisory board. Member of the Therapeutic Justice Foundation. Right. Organizes Eva's Heroes Fashion Week camp. Yeah. Volunteers with the Bexar County Specialty Courts. Yeah. And dances in the Gridiron Scholarship fundraiser videos. Michael.
My favorite.
What a list of accomplishments.
Oh, my goodness.
And the reason why I wanted to bring this list, I mean, it is a full list, is I want you to tell, I was with you when you got your award at the Pride Luncheon last year for 2024. And you told a story that I think is very impactful. I'd like for you to tell that story.
Oh, thank you, David. I remember after I told that story, so many young people in the audience came up to me and said, thank you for sharing that story. Well, this was early in my career as a journalist. And
here in San Antonio?
Here in San Antonio. I just started at the San Antonio Express News. It was the Express back then. We had a morning paper and an afternoon paper. Mm-hmm. They were split with two separate staffs. And I was called in for my first review. It was, I'd just been there for maybe 6 weeks or so. And it was an early review, and the editor said that he had the perfect job for me. He said, first of all, he discouraged me from continuing my career in journalism. He said that actually he had the perfect career choice for me, and it wasn't in the newsroom. That he thought that I would make the perfect hairdresser. Mm. And he wanted me to sign the review. And so, you know, of course I did. I mean, what was I supposed to do? I was so young and so naive, and I didn't really know how to handle such situations, right? Mm-hmm. I don't even know if there was a human resources department back then. There might have been, but I wouldn't even know how to maneuver such a thing, right?
Yeah.
And I remember after I did, I walked away from his office, and I had my back to him, and then he said two words to me. He said, "You fat." And I just kind of stopped. I didn't turn around to look at him. I just kept walking. And I walked to my desk. I sat down. And then I was like really feeling the sting and the pain of that, the hurt of that. I got up, I left the newsroom, and I went to my car, and I sat in my car. And that's when I started to cry. I sat in my car and I cried, and I had a good cry. I came back and I finished my day, and then I went home. and I spoke to my mother that night, that afternoon, that evening, about what happened that day. And actually, I think also that was the talk that we had about being gay. We never had talked about that. But I remember telling her about this awful day I had and how, what do I do now? My mom was always the most major, important person in my life, such a big influence in the best possible way. All of my dreams were accomplished because of her hard work and her sacrifices and her struggle, not just for me, but for my 3 sisters. And so she said, well, you have one choice. You get up tomorrow and you go back to that newsroom, or you don't. It's up to you. But just know that you are deserving of this dream that we've both worked so hard for. You know, going to Trinity University on the bus, you know, walking everywhere to get things done because I had no car. You know, we only had one car in the family and had to just figure out how to do things. And so I did. I got up the next day, and that's where I learned how to, you know, you have to get up out of bed, you have to stand up, you have to show up, and you have to show out. And I went back to work, and I continued my job on the beat and being a reporter, and I think that gave me so much strength to do that. That's where I learned about the power of self, and
yes, because
and how to be deserving.
Correct, because you could either have gone 2 ways after that situation. You could have been self-defeating and gone and chosen something else. And the reason why I listed these accomplishments and I wanted you to tell that story is because you accomplished a lot, no matter what people thought of you. I mean, you became fashion editor for LA Times. You've been to Paris, Milan, and you've accomplished so much despite what that one person could have done to you.
Yes, yeah. And my message to others who are in that situation, I imagine it still happens today, hopefully to a lesser degree. I think in the time that we're living right now, in the LGBTQ plus community, things have gotten better. And
we've come a long way, baby, but I still think we need we still have some a good road to go.
Yeah, there are still struggles, but I think that there are more there are safer places for us now, I believe also.
Yeah.
You know, it's not especially in the workplace. I think that it's a better environment. I know my second time around at the Express News, it was wonderful. You know, all my friends knew I was out. I was married by then, and built another wonderful career my second time around at the Express News as a feature writer, also covering fashion, but covering just all kinds of wonderful general assignment stories. Correct. You know.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to your mom and the strong influence that your mom had on you. You know, that day when you came home and you told her what a hard day, and that it sounds like she was very important throughout your entire life and in this path that you have chosen.
Yeah, she was. You know, we grew up on the south side of San Antonio. I still live on the south side, have never really left the south side. These are my roots. I went to Burbank High School, and then after that to Trinity University. We lived on a 2-block street in a very, you know, middle-class neighborhood, and my mom worked several jobs. She worked for Levi Strauss, the blue jean plant, and she did zippers on blue jeans. And I think that's where my passion for fashion also began, because she was a seamstress, but she did zippers, and she got paid 25 cents a zipper on every jean. Back then, you know, jeans are put together by pieces, right?
Correct.
And I remember her fingers hurting and her wrists and her hands hurting a lot. I think that was probably the beginnings of what we now know as carpal tunnel syndrome.
Correct. Yes.
Because these women were doing that kind of piecework, and because she also got a salary, but it was probably very nominal salary, but the incentive was 25 cents per zipper. So she was like cranking out those zippers as fast as she could, you know.
Yeah.
I remember she had that job, and then she also had a job at the Judson Candy Factory, which is, they're now lofts. I wish you could have
Correct,
seen them
yes.
turn into these like luxury lofts now. She was a jelly, she worked packaging chocolates, and then she got promoted to a jelly bean colorist, and which was so fun, you know, because we always had candy at the house. But yes, my mom was a big influence. She always pushed or promoted education on us, made sure that that we did what we wanted to do and be who we wanted to be. She always told me that night that this horrible incident happened when that editor called me a fat in the newsroom. This was back in the 1970s, and she said, you want to be a writer, don't you? This is what you want to do. You want to
that's
write.
your choice. That was your choice, and the life path that you wanted to take.
Yes.
Was to be a writer and journalist, and look at where you are now.
And I said, yes, Ma, I do. And then she said, well, then do it, and here's why. And she went to this, I tell the story, she went to this wall that we had at the home. It had shelves and drawers, and she pulled out this pillowcase. And inside the pillowcase were scraps of paper where I had written stories as a child.
Oh, wow.
Like on the back piece of wrapping paper or a lunch bag, little poems, little stories. And she said, look, you've been writing ever since you were a little kid. And look at you now, you're doing this professionally. Writing is what you love, mijo. So, you know, don't give up on this dream. Go back and continue to write. And there was the evidence right there. And I remember all of that. And I said, you're right, Ma. That was the fuel that energized me to go back. And perhaps I didn't even have to face that man again. I just knew that I had to be there. And people say to me, wow, that was brave that you did that. And I said, I don't know if that was brave or not. It just made sense to do that. It gave me a sense of worth. It gave me power. It was like, I finally felt like I deserved something.
Yeah.
Because you worked so hard for it.
Correct.
Right? And that's the thing that I call you have to set a deserve level for yourself. It's not going to happen, but you have to earn it.
And I think it's also being your authentic self, because when your mom pulled out those little stories that you had written when you were a young kid, that is you, and that is being your authentic self. That's what you wanted to be, and that's who you are as a writer.
Right.
And that should also translate into the life of who you are and being your authentic self.
Right. That's right. And I've continued to write, and I've never had that situation ever happen again. I think it's made me also tell this story and other stories to other young people. And it doesn't matter if you're gay or not.
Correct.
We all face these obstacles in life, and it's just a matter on how we
choose to overcome it.
Exactly. How are we going to solve this? As I feel like there are never really any problems. We just haven't found the solution. It's all about finding your way out of this. There's a way out.
Correct.
And the way out is always do you want to be a victim or do you want to be victorious?
I love that, Michael. That's fantastic. Do you want to be a victim or do you want to be victorious?
I've always approached my life that way. Like you're faced with this, right?
Every day, everybody, all of us are faced with challenges.
That's right.
And then when we face those challenges, are you going to be a victim? Or are you going to be victorious? That's beautiful,
Don't
Michael.
ever allow anyone to victimize you. You become the victor, you know?
That's
But
wonderful.
you have to do it also in a way that is not vindictive.
Of course, yeah.
I always like to do it with kindness, with joy, you know? I do it for myself.
Yeah.
I do it for myself and for myself. That's the right reason.
And
ultimately for others.
And then also, your husband since passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a story about that. What how did y'all meet, and in y'all's life together?
We met at the Express News when I was straight
really?
out of Trinity. He was in advertising.
Okay.
He ran a department in the advertising on on the 4th floor. I think I was on the 2nd floor at the Express News. We actually, it's a fun story. We met in the elevator at the paper, and he tells a funny story. Back then I had a lot of hair, like a big BG hair.
That's the way it was in the 70s, Michael. We all had those. And the feathers. I remember I had feathers.
I had so much hair. And, you know, and the elevator back then in the 70s, the elevators were, all the walls of the elevators had mirrors on them, you know. And he reminds me at the time that he said I was like messing with my hair in the mirror, you know, like making sure that my hair was on point. Here I was going to the police beat, you know, but I wanted to have that Serpico look.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Michael. I love it.
And I said, I don't remember that, Paul. He says, oh yeah, you were primping in the mirror, but I did say hello to you. And I said, oh, okay. So that's how we met. And then we became great friends, and we stayed friends for such a long time. We've always had newspapers in common. From San Antonio, we went to El Paso. We worked there for a while, and then to Dallas, and then he was made a wonderful offer to go work in Houston, and I stayed in Dallas because I love Dallas. That's the first time we ever had that split for a while, and then I had an offer to go interview at both the New York Times and the LA Times. I had plane tickets for both papers.
Wow.
I know, it was just like so awesome. I went to LA first, and I loved LA so much. I just loved, it reminded me so much of San Antonio, only bigger and more sprawling.
Yes.
And it had the ocean.
Yeah, of course, and the wonderful climate.
Yes, and I also have been, I've always fancied the celebrity culture. I just always did.
Well, yes.
And that's why I loved going
Well,
there.
didn't you not like interview Hugh Hefner in silk pajamas?
Yes.
You crashed Diana Ross's
50th birthday party at Spago.
Oh gosh! And then you chased Bob Hope into the restroom, right? To get
Oh my gosh!
To get a.
How do you know all this?
It's called research, Michael. We've got to do research when we're doing these interviews. But
I did. He was, I think, maybe not quite 100 yet. And I saw him, I said, oh my gosh, I've got to get Bob Hope. I hope the younger audience will find out who Bob Hope is. But what a legend, right? Bob
Oh my
Hope.
gosh, of course.
So it was at this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful party. It was a tribute to Rosemary Clooney.
Oh.
And it was the beginning of George Clooney's career.
Oh, uh-huh.
And he was there. And I have to tell you a funny story about him at that event as well. But I saw Bob Hope sitting there, and he had handlers with him, or bodyguards, or these two guys with him, and he was walking very slow, and he could still move on his own. I said, I've got to get him. So I saw these two guys walk up and go to the men's room, and I think they were just clearing the restroom for him, making sure no one was in there so he could go in there and be peaceful and all that, and not be bothered. So they went back to the table, and I said, they're bringing him to the men's room. That's when I just jolted from my chair to the men's room. I went in there.
Like,
I had to get the quote, right? And you know, journalism, anything for the quote.
Correct.
Right? As long as you're not breaking the law.
Yes.
So anyway, I'm at the urinal, right? And Bob Hope walks in, and I can hear feet and chatter and something like, we'll be out here, Mr. Hope. Okay, and he's walking in. And I guess they didn't check the bathroom, but I was in there already. What could they do?
Yeah.
Right? So Bob Hope walks in, and he stands there's like 6 or 8 urinals, and he picks the one right next to mine. I said, okay, he's going along with this, right? And so I said, I looked like to the left, and he's there, and I said, oh, hi, Mr. Hope. He goes, well, hi there, young man. I said, well, how are you doing, Mr. Hope? And he goes, well, I'm just hanging around. Or hanging out. I'm just hanging out.
the comedian, Mr. Bob Hope. Ever the comedian. Ba-dum-bum. Yes.
Oh my goodness. And he goes, and I said, Mr. Hope, my name's Michael Quintanilla. He goes, oh, great. I'm now washing my hands, and he's over at the sink washing his hands, and I hand him those beautiful towels that are this was at the Beverly at the Beverly Hilton Hotel.
The famous Beverly Hilton.
Yes, where they do the Golden Globes and all of that. And so I handed him the towel and I said, Mr. Hope, I'm Michael Quintanilla. I'm with the LA Times and I'm here covering this beautiful event in honor of Rosemary Clooney. Can you tell me a story about Rosemary Clooney? I know y'all did these road pictures together.
Correct, yeah.
Right? Or I did one, and he tells me a little story, and we start talking, and you know, I could tell then it was time for us. I just wanted to get something sweet from him, and then we're getting ready to leave, and I said, Mr. Hope, may I walk you back to your table? Can I walk you out? And he says, absolutely. And he goes like this, and I lock my arm inside his, and we just walk out of the bathroom together.
God, that's great, Michael.
Yes, he was living. I think he
times.
was living in Toluca Lake at the time, and he was I think 100 when he passed away.
Yeah,
a centenarian.
I think he was. Yeah.
Yes.
So real quick, George Clooney. What was it?
George Clooney was at that party.
Yes.
Because that's his. He's
his aunt.
His aunt. He's
yes,
the nephew.
Rosemary Clooney is his aunt. Yeah.
There was this other guy there. There were so many people there. Carol Burnett, Julie Andrews, Bette Midler.
Oh my gosh,
Betty
Michael,
White.
What a great time.
Yeah, they went. So at the time, I had the party beat for the LA Times.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing all these other things, but we were starting to cover parties, and I said, I want to do that. You know, and there were some other people on staff, and they were used to LA, and some people were interested, some weren't. But I was all about that. You know, having come from, you know,
little old San Antonio.
This Chicano from the south side of San Antonio.
Correct.
Get thrown into this culture.
How wonderful.
Of LA
Michael.
and the celebrity culture and just other things too. I mean, I covered East LA. I did all these other things there as well. Wrote about the Latino community and all of that. But so there was this guy there. He's a famous pianist, and I forget his name, but he grew up in the same neighborhood as. He knew Rosemary Clooney and he knew George Clooney, and so I was talking to him and I said, oh my goodness, he mentioned George Clooney, and I said, do you know him? He says, oh yeah, we're like cousins. I said, wow, I'd love to talk to him. He says, I'll go get him. So he goes and gets him and he brings him to me. This is a fun party. I mean, a party is a party. You're
Correct.
gonna have fun. It's
Correct.
Like talk to people, right?
Yeah.
And so you're not at a funeral, you're at a party. And so, you know, whoopee. So he brings George Clooney to me, and I'm standing in front of him, and I am just dumbfounded. I'm speechless. I don't know what to say for the first time.
Michael Quintanilla not knowing what to say.
Because he's so beautiful.
So what eventually did you say?
So I just kind of go, he goes, yes. And I go, I said, you are so handsome. I said that to him, you know, and I think he loved it that it came from another guy, right?
Uh-huh.
And he starts to smile, that George Clooney smile. And then he says to me, well, you're not so bad yourself.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic.
I said, I'm so sorry, but you're just as good looking as you are on TV and all of that. And my name is Michael Quintanilla with the LA Times. And, you know, what can you share a story about your Aunt Rosemary Clooney? She was in a wheelchair at the time and wasn't singing, but it was a big tribute to her. It was put on by the Society of Singers, who were these older, like the golden age of Hollywood singers, most of them female singers, and they put on a special show for her.
Okay, Michael. The last thing I want to ask is, what would you want to say to the younger generation, the younger LGBTQ plus kids that are coming up and who may be lost or who are trying to find themselves? What would you say to them?
I think it's the things that we hear these days, is to be yourself, not to hide. There are so many places now where it is safe, and we see it all the time. I'm at HEB and I see, you know, gay couples together holding hands, and that would have never been possible in the 70s. I mean, you could have done it, but you would have been
so ostracized
and ridiculed and maybe even, you know, beaten up in public, that kind of thing. You would have to hide that. I remember like hiding those feelings, hiding
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But nowadays you see it, and I remember, you know, I know even when my mom was living and she would see it, it was like, it wasn't a point. It didn't elicit the conversation. It was just kind of like, oh, you know, that's cool, you know, and then we go on by our do our whatever we were going to plan to do that day.
Yeah.
I think just continue to do that, because that builds strength and character, confidence,
Be yourself.
freedom.
Be your authentic
And
self.
freedom is on the line today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this is what the political climate is all about. Do we want our freedoms taken away from us? They will be taken away from us if we hide.
Correct.
We cannot hide. Right? Yeah. So
You're right.
this is what I would tell anyone, whatever your gender, whatever your preference, whatever your age, is like, you know, we have to keep fighting the good fight. That's always been the you know, the feeling is to just to be strong. If you can do that, then you will survive this, and we will always move forward, not backwards, even though at times it seems like we're going back. But it will, you know, keep going forward for yourself, because if you do that, you go forward for the community. As they say, there's unity in the community.
Yeah, I love that. Unity in the community. Well, on that note, Michael, thank you for joining us. I so appreciate it. And it was such a pleasure sitting down talking with you.
Same here. Thank you for coming to my home. Thank you for
love
coming
it.
to the
I love
South Side.